When it comes to atheism, there are some really ridiculous things that believers say about it. Here's another collection of videos where theists say stupid things, from how atheism is a lie to faith being evidence. Yeah, sifting through the silly yet again as only a skeptic can. Hello, I'm the Skeptic, the British floating circle that watches people make extraordinary claims, and then I explain why I don't accept what they're saying. Why on earth do we have to keep listening to theists misunderstanding atheism, rejecting gods rather than not believing in them, lying about the Bible? Atheists are just plain mean. We're touching on a lot of silly this time, so get ready for a slight headache as we experience more theists saying stupid things. Although, before we hear some more silly things that theists say, if this isn't your first Skeptic video, hit the like, the subscribe and the bell, and let's see if the algorithm can get it right. And a super thanks to those that hit super thanks in some recent videos. New Pitbull, Ron Stubbs, Megatron Jenkins, Mabbity Babbity, Robert L, New Pitbull again, and Andy Martin. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe bestows leaves upon you all. More hen. Take it away, Tom Brown. This is why atheism is a lie.
Atheism is not the knowledge that God doesn't exist.
Knowledge about the existence of a god isn't atheism. Well done, Tommy. It's Gnosticism.
But the wish that he doesn't.
I don't know any atheist that wishes a god not to exist. That would suggest that the god would have to exist in the first place, and atheism is just about not being convinced or seeing no good reason to accept a god does exist, TomTom Navigation.
Because atheists want to live in a world where they're not challenged to keep the moral laws of God.
I don't believe in a god. Why would I accept the supposed moral laws that humans suggest it lays down?
I want to share with you the 3 proofs that atheism is a lie. I think the first proof is that God made us believe in him.
Assertion without anything to back it up.
Ecclesiastes says that God put it into our hearts to believe in eternity.
Well, despite the fact that the Bible isn't proof, that's saying that eternity is set in the hearts of mankind, not God, duh, Tom.
We're the only creatures on the planet that believe that God exists and that we're going to live after death. None of the animal creation believes that. In fact, we're here at a zoo, and it's fun to see the zoo. It's fun to see the animals. We love the animals. But in the end, we as human beings are the only ones that believe in God. And why? Because God made us believe.
The God isn't powerful enough to make gorillas or other animals believe. Could it not just be that we're the only species that questions existence, and then the only ones that are dumb enough to make up supernatural explanations for everything because it just sounds nice? Plus, there weren't the tools thousands of years ago to make sense of everything that happens now.
And as much as atheists try to shake off the belief of God, they still have to contemplate that God exists. So the first proof that atheism is a lie is God put it in our hearts to believe in God. Second thing, common sense. So we know that nothing can create something. We know everything comes from something else. So if we go back to the very beginning of the universe, what made it? You can't have it just magically appear.
You can't. So how did the God make it appear? Without magic? It's only believers in gods that think that there was ever nothing. And why? Because that's what they're taught to believe. This is why the only real acceptable explanation for the existence of something is that Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, leave be upon her, pooped it into existence. That way, something didn't come from nothing. It came from a giant rainbow shit.
You have to have a divine being that is greater than the universe making it. And this is why we believe in God, because it's common sense. Only God, the unseen, uncreated God, can make that which is created.
I don't know. It's common in that lots of people believe it, but the only sense I see is that it's senseless to accept something that has never been demonstrated to be real. Look, Ma, I made something up. I used my common sense. No, Tom, that's using your imagination. And again, you used your imagination to accept created.
And then finally, the third reason that atheism is a lie is God made a universe that's moral. C.S. Lewis, who was an atheist, came to believe in God for one reason. He thought about the fact that the universe is a moral creation. That is, we know there's right and wrong, good and evil. Where did this concept of good and evil come from except a God who is good? And the free will that recognizes the opposite of good, which is evil.
Hang on. God is good? The same God that drowned everyone? that killed babies, that told people to kill their children, that explained how to own people as property. That good and moral God.
And so the universe is a moral universe, which is something that atheists cannot explain. These three are the big reasons why atheism is a lie.
Except, no, they're not. You know, the best way to prove atheism is a lie is to demonstrate a God. It really is that simple. Next.
In Adam, we were all within him. Right. And because of his blood being tainted with sin, we inherited everything that comes with being in the Adam's family.
Da-da-da-da.
But because of what Christ has done, he redeemed us by his blood. He purchased us from among men. He brought us into a new covenant by his blood. His blood speaks better than the blood of Abel.
Well, hang on. What about all the people that were born with sin between Adam and Jesus getting hammered one night? They couldn't get into heaven because Jesus hadn't yet spilled his blood, and there was nothing they could do about it. Seems a little sus to me.
His blood is sufficient. His blood was sinless. His blood didn't need to be repeated year after year. Right. It was the one sacrifice that satisfied the Father. It wasn't an atonement. That was the sacrificial system. It ended that system so it would finally satisfy God, his wrath on sin. The fancy word that the scripture uses is the Father sent his Son to be a propitiating sacrifice.
But how many hundreds of years after sin came to be those poor people?
The propitiation, he was finally satisfied. Now, the only sin that is not covered is the sin of unbelief, period. And those who reject Jesus, they do so because of unbelief. And I believe it this way. Romans says that in Romans 1, that everyone knows that God really exists.
Of course, a book that says a God is real is going to say that. But that verse alone shows that it's a load of BS. I don't know a God really exists. I'm not convinced. So throw that crappy book away. It's clearly useless.
But there are those who suppress the truth. And because they're suppressors of truth, there's no such thing as an atheist. There are suppressors of the truth. They're deniers of the God that they know exists. The phone they hold in their hand, there's a designer. Their life came from their predecessor, their mother and father. Everyone has a beginning.
So you're calling my parents designers now? Does that mean that Godfrey's parents were its designers? If not, why do you get to change the rules for an invisible floaty sky being?
And for them to deny the truth and then teach others this is the way of being a denier, that's our life. That's what we've been taught. Lies and lies. How to be deniers of God when the evidence is all around us.
There's a difference between evidence being all around and accepting something you're told and looking at things and saying, well, obviously that's because of the thing I believe in.
How foolish can we be? But people want to see to believe when the evidence is clear as day. There is a designer behind the creation. It's called a creator. And he's made himself known.
And every creator is a thing, so therefore also needs a creator. Unless it's Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, leave be upon her, who always just was. And she's made herself known, so next, I guess.
Too many people just accept at face value what atheists say Christians mean by faith. Folks, they're lying to you. When we say have faith in Jesus, we're not saying have blind faith, believing something without evidence. We're saying to trust him, just like how a young child trusts a good parent.
But sometimes parents lie to their kids. No, little skeptic, Santa is real. And he'll bring you presents. Oh, you lost a tooth? Well, a fairy will visit you and bring you money. What, a man died on a cross? Don't worry, an egg-laying rabbit will bring you chocolate, but at a different time each year because Easter is a pagan tradition, and you think that the death of a child of a floating sky wizard would have an exact death date. And also, why don't believers ever say, I have evidence in Jesus? It's always faith, because I guess there is no evidence.
It's having faith in someone. Atheists don't get to define what Christians mean by faith any more than I get to define what they mean by atheism. If you can't refute a worldview without lying about what that worldview says, then maybe you can't really refute it at all.
But you can define atheism, just as everyone can define faith. What is this? Burying your head in the sand? Come on, Ken, do better. Next.
Many prominent atheists, like Stephen Hawking and Neil deGrasse Tyson, often reject the concept of God they were introduced to, usually one tied to human limitations or contradictions. For example, they were taught to see God as a supreme being with human-like emotions, one who shows regret or changes his mind. From a scientific, logical perspective, this concept doesn't align with the idea of an all-powerful, consistent creator. Rejecting this view actually makes sense. It's logical.
Hold on one moment. Why is this AI doing a bad impression of Sir David Attenborough when it's my job to do a bad impersonation of the legend?
But imagine a different concept, a creator outside time and space, beyond human limitations and completely consistent. This concept doesn't conflict with logic. In fact, it complements it. So when many atheists say they don't believe in God, they're rejecting an idea that might not be an accurate reflection of a true, consistent creator. The question becomes, is it possible they're not rejecting God, but rather a flawed interpretation of what God is?
No, we're merely not convinced that any God is. Flawed or not flawed, inside or outside of time, space, and matter, there's nothing to suggest that there is a being that made all this happen. But just for shits and giggles, I do want this voice to say that it most likely was Lisa the rainbow giraffe. Leaf be upon her.
My bigger question about atheists is that, has there ever been a moment where they've actually talked a believer out of their God? And what does that moment look like? If that is their agenda, what does that moment look like?
I don't know about most others, but my agenda is to normalise non-belief and let others know that I'm not the evil devil worshipper they think I am for some reason. I'm not here to convince others that their God isn't real. It's up to them to find that out.
Given the atheists that perhaps you know, I picture it going like this. There's some dude just walking down the street. Things have been hard for him. And he's probably thinking like, oh, things aren't going well. But, I got God in my heart, and that makes me feel better. He's like, he gives me hope that things are going to be okay. God's looking out for me. And then out of the bushes jumps an atheist. There's no God. You're living a lie. There's no proof. You believe in a cartoon. It's a delusion, stupid. And then the guy just goes, oh, I never thought about it like that. Oh, no.
Pretty sound argument, I'd say. Kidding, ovs.
Oh, I think you're right. There's no God. Everything's just bad. It's just bad. What does an atheist do at that moment? Boom! Who wins? Yeah! Oh, I won. I'm going to go tell my friends.
And this is why I talk about being atheist, because apparently all atheists are shitty and only have shitty friends, and it's okay to look down on them. Well, I've got news for you, it's not. And I've had many folks say to me that conversations with me about why I don't accept gods have given them an extra insight to question everything themselves. It's not a win, but it's about being a decent human being and helping people figure out what they want to figure out.
This video is about the claims that a lot of atheists have. Notice I said a lot, I didn't say all, so don't freak out in the comments. Well, unless that's what you have to do, because a lot of atheists like to freak out in the comments. Anyway, many atheists out there think that I'm ragging on them, trolling them. They click on my videos, but I'm trolling them. They think that my purpose in life is to mock them.
Do you laugh at someone for not believing in the undemonstrated? I don't laugh at you for not accepting that pink squirrels bury washing machine parts in my basement. That would just be silly.
It's not the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this channel is to educate non-atheists about the MO of the atheists and what atheists do. I don't have a problem with you not being a Christian. I don't have a problem with you being an atheist. The problem that I have, and all Christians have, is that you lie about the Bible.
Hold on. Despite not being one, you speak on behalf of atheists and explain what they think, even though it would just be easier to ask an actual atheist. No wonder folks get irritated with you.
You refute everything good about the Bible. You said there's nothing good in the Bible. It's fairy tales, it's garbage, there's mass genocide, but you ignore the fact that atheists kill more people than Christianity ever has in 3,000 years. Atheists have killed way more people in the last century. But they ignore that, of course. There's another video on that.
Hang on. What? That's the dumbest lie ever. The Crusades lasting nearly 200 years. The 8 wars of religion lasting over 30. The 30 Years' War. The Reconquista. Hitler was a God believer, despite many saying he wasn't. And then all the biblical genocide that wiped out millions. Which atheist war killed more than all that combined?
It's the problem of you refuting proof in the Bible. It's the thing that you're spreading around that the Bible promotes genocide. It promotes war for no reason, without provocation or without warning, hurting children, killing children, sacrificing people. No.
Yes?
And the only sacrifice that was in the Bible that was human was Jesus. They sacrificed animals before Jesus died on the cross.
This dude didn't sacrifice his daughter then. The king of Moab didn't sacrifice his son then. Huh.
If you have read the Bible and you missed that, that's pretty substantial, big information that...
Did you read it?
Anyway, but maybe you get it and you know it, you just lie about it. So that's part of the MO of the atheist. Anyway, so am I ragging on you? Well, in the comments, I do reply to the comments that you provide me. But is that the purpose here? No, it's not the purpose. That's not the focus of my channel. The focus of the channel is educating people on what the atheists do and say. And by the way, your comments, which I've said this in a lot of videos, prove my point. All the refuting, all the arguing, all the denying, and all the lies come out in the comments.
Someone disagreeing with you isn't a lie, matey. It's just that they see no reason to accept what you're saying.
Even after I say it on the video, you prove it down below. So, thank you. No, the point of this channel is not to rag on you or troll you or bring you down. It's to educate people on the stupidity and the lies that you present. And there's so many gullible people out there, they believe you.
Hold on, don't you believe in a magic bearded man creating everything and then later getting a teenager pregnant with itself just so it could later have itself killed to appease itself at another time? And you're saying atheists are stupid.
The smart thing would be for those people to pick up the Bible and look it up to see if what you're telling them is true, but they don't. They just go, oh, well, that sounds right. I hate the Bible. It's full of genocide, murder, and child rape.
And slavery, and mauling kids to death with bears, and dashing infants against rocks, and painting blood over doors so that an apparent all-knowing God gets told by humans which families not to kill. What's your point?
Incest. Yeah, there was bad things in the Bible, but the Bible's not telling you to do them. There's a major point right there that's overlooked.
Doesn't the Bible tell you to kill your children if they don't behave, and to kill unbelievers, homosexuals, and people who work on Sundays? So it says to do those things, but it doesn't really mean it. Well, if that's the case, how do you know it means the rest?
Look things up. Try to find if that information's correct, but people don't do that. Mass stupidity. So, no, that's not the point of my channel, is not to bring you down and to convince you that there's a God. It happens to work that way in the comments, but that's not the purpose. Bye-bye now.
Thank goodness, because it doesn't look like you're doing any of that anyway. Next.
Proving theists are good people because of what they believe in, which is heaven. I'm getting to that. Hold your horses. Okay. I'm also proving that atheists are mean to theists because they attack their beliefs or heaven's potential.
That's not being mean to theists. That's saying the belief is silly. Being mean to a theist would be something like, can you believe this guy recorded a video with food on his face?
I'll get to this in a second. Keep an eye out for it, because I'm not going to put it within your scope. You're going to put it within your scope by dictating what I said or hearing what I said, okay? So pay attention
I'm trying to pay attention, but this guy's been featured before and was equally incoherent.
If theists do no physical evil against flesh, and mean no evil by tongue, then theists aren't worthy of being attacked. Bottom line. Also, because the theists have a strong desire to live, because they believe in heaven's concept with no evidence, and so their desire to live would be strong and worthy. And so it wouldn't matter. Theists can't prove heaven existent because their desire to live is strong, thus worthy. Right, atheists? Come on now.
What? Are you trying a gotcha with some wording saying you can't prove heaven because you want to live? Are you okay?
Atheists that debate like to insult and potentially laugh, and those two things make those atheists lose their humanity.
I don't know. Humour may be pretty human. Maybe some other great apes get it too.
The ones that debate against theists because of their desire to live and the fact that it's a worthy belief, not worthy of being attacked, as I've already said.
I don't know. Silly claims that have no credible evidence to back them up are definitely worthy of being spoken against.
So atheists lose their humanity when they attack people that aren't fit for punishment or pain.
It's hardly an attack for saying, I don't believe you. It just sounds stupid. Hate the belief, not the believer. It's pretty akin to hate the sin, not the sinner. You folks lay down, right?
And so they, or atheists that debate, pretend with every single person. And the atheists that debate don't respect a person who is a believer. Their desire to live by their acceptance of the concept of heaven.
This is less a theist saying stupid things and more a theist rambling about something that makes zero sense, but probably feeling persecuted for some reason. It just came across as dumb. Next.
This is something that God has been placing on my mind lately. My faith is not a burden to me. It's actually my refuge. I think so many times we can treat our faith as if it was a burden. We can think of our convictions as something that is stopping us from living life. We can think of God's word as commands that are keeping us from living instead of what's leading us to life. God has been placing that in my mind and in my heart to speak out because our faith is what sustains us, not what keeps us from living.
I genuinely think that inside a theist's head is just a jumble of words that they pick out and string together to make some kind of sentence they hope makes sense. Faith doesn't keep you living, but it keeps you not living, or what now? I'm sorry, I switched off.
Our faith is what leads us into having a higher awareness of what all of this is about. And even in the moments where you might feel restrained, where you might feel held back, I want us to realize that that is just God's grace over our lives. Not everybody has convictions. Not everybody has the ability to hear from God. Not everybody gets that revelation.
Did you? Can you prove it was a God and not you just thinking it was a God? If you're hearing voices, maybe speak to a mental health professional.
If you've ever felt like your faith is a burden, I want to tell you your faith is actually God's grace.
If it's a God's grace, why not call it a God's grace instead of faith? You know, like, I have a God's grace that God exists. It sounds 1% more plausible than I have faith that there's a God.
Our faith is actually what sustains us in our everyday. Don't allow the enemy to trick you into believing that you're not living life, or you could be living life a different way. Jesus says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. That means that outside of him, there is no other way, there is no other truth, and there is no life outside of Jesus.
I don't know, love. I've been living for 41 years without Jesus, and I seem to be doing okay at life. Perhaps think about what you say before you say it out loud. Well, we made it through another load of silly, and all I found out is that some folks think I'm mean for saying I don't believe you. I guess that's on par with, you're going to hell for not believing what I do. Good job. The projection is definitely strong with this lot, especially when they say stupid things. Though you may now be convinced that atheists are just mean and really do believe in a God, but want to reject it to live a life of misery or something. Let me know in the section below. I'm going to skeptic this as another bunch of stupid dealt with. A big thank you to this month's top level ticks on Patreon. Dark Ether Piao, Tamo, The Barely Bearable Atheist, George, Godless Granny, Addy Rockhart, The Enixes, Jakari, Elizabeth, Whiskey Tech Fred and Rick, as well as all the $3 base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with links to all my other socials. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.